The zoo workers thought the stray cat was hunting the baby hedgehogs. Every time they checked the enclosure, she was there again, staring through the wire. But the longer they watched her, the less her behavior made sense. Only a few days earlier, local residents had carried a tiny hedgehog family into the zoo. Their mother had likely been killed by a lawnmower while hiding in deep grass. The 8 babies were blind, cold, and weak. Without constant feeding, nobody expected them to survive much longer at all. The staff tried everything they knew: warm towels, tiny bottles, careful droppers, and long sleepless nights filled the nursery room. Still, the babies refused every meal. Their little bodies became lighter each morning. Some workers stopped speaking, hopefully because they feared becoming attached to animals they could not save anymore. During those exhausting days, the cat named Muska stayed nearby constantly. She had once arrived at the zoo pregnant and had recently finished nursing her own kittens. Whenever the hedgehogs cried softly, Muska lifted her head immediately. She never hissed, hunted, or acted aggressive. Instead, she looked strangely concerned somehow. One afternoon, the zoo director suggested something that sounded completely unreasonable. Since Muska still carried milk, perhaps she could feed the hedgehogs herself. Several workers resisted immediately because the babies were fragile and covered with tiny spines. Yet every other attempt had already failed, leaving fear mixed with desperation anyway. When they finally placed the first hedgehog beside her, the room became perfectly quiet. Muska lowered herself carefully and waited without moving. The tiny animal crawled closer slowly, searching through her fur with its nose. Then, after days without eating, the baby finally began nursing while exhausted workers watched silently. After that moment, Muska returned several times each day. She cleaned the babies gently, curled around them for warmth, and tolerated their prickly little bodies against her stomach. The workers started noticing patterns that felt surprisingly maternal. Muska seemed calmer whenever all 8 babies rested safely beside her together nearby. Still, some employees quietly wondered whether the connection was real. Muska had recently raised kittens, and maternal instinct could explain almost anything. Maybe she simply responded to movement and sound. Maybe any helpless animal would have triggered the same behavior. Nobody wanted to admit how they believed the bond mattered. A few days later, curiosity finally overcame hesitation. The workers prepared a test while Muska rested nearby. They carefully replaced the hedgehogs with other babies around the same age and size. To human eyes, the animals looked identical. The staff expected Muska to settle beside them without noticing anything unusual. But the reaction changed the entire room. Muska sniffed the unfamiliar hedgehogs once, then pulled back immediately. She paced around the enclosure and searched every corner with growing urgency. Her movements no longer looked instinctive or random. She behaved like a mother suddenly realizing her children had disappeared without explanation. When the workers returned the original babies, Muska relaxed within seconds. She lowered herself beside them and began cleaning their faces one by one. Several people in the room became emotional watching her. The test answered something none of them had expected. Muska did not nurture hedgehogs. She recognized family. From that point forward, the atmosphere inside the nursery changed completely. Workers who had prepared themselves for loss suddenly felt hopeful again. The babies gained strength, learned to eat independently, and slept peacefully against Muska's fur after feeding. One tiny hedgehog always pressed closest beside her front legs during naps. The story spread among visitors and local animal lovers after a worker photographed Muska nursing the babies. People stared at the image because it seemed impossible at first glance. Tiny spines pressed against soft fur while the cat rested peacefully. Yet the photograph captured part of what made the story unforgettable forever.
Mama Musa. Musa. Musa.
Years later, most of those rescued hedgehogs had returned safely to the wild and eventually produced families of their own. The workers still remembered Muska whenever they cared for frightened animals. Her behavior challenged old assumptions about instinct and species boundaries. Somehow, the stray cat changed the culture inside that zoo. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who loves animals and kindness. Muska reminded everyone that compassion sometimes appears in completely unexpected forms. When rescuing vulnerable animals, patience matters deeply. Small acts of care can protect entire futures, even when hope initially feels fragile and impossible. At KindPaws, each story begins with our team's heart. We choose only real and meaningful moments, always from respected sources. With thoughtful editing, music, and images, we work to make each story meaningful and alive. Thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to the next story together.